Hello buddy, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the 7.11 patch notes video. So, I'm the Strategy Professor. Thank you very much for tuning in. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the champions first, and then going into the items, and the tier list, and the meta-analysis video is going to be a separate video. I've done this in some patches in the past, and I think that just works out better. It makes for shorter videos, a little more concise, especially with a lot of the changes. Like, it's going to take a while to cover a lot of these things because I go really in depth with these. You know, I've watched some other people who've done the patch notes, and then, you know, these are very well-known, you know, YouTubers, and it's interesting, but they'll, you know, they'll just say things like, oh, Rek'Sai, that's a lot of stuff. I think that's pretty good. Or Kindred, that's a lot of stuff. I think that's okay. You know, even some of the seemingly greatest minds on YouTube, they just don't go in depth. They don't give you some actual numbers. They don't give you some actual scenarios where these champions might be good or might be bad. A lot of them, they don't do any prior research. It's just kind of on the fly. They just read it and they just kind of respond however they think about it. So I try to switch it up if you're new to my patch notes videos and just give you a ton of fairly well-researched information about the changes. I mean, I spent 3 hours earlier today researching this and writing up all of these notes so that I really had a good grasp and I can give you good information. Now, sometimes I'm wrong about things, but I think more times than not, I'm pretty good at predicting like what's going to happen with things and what's going to be powerful. And I'm pretty early to the game because I do this kind of research. You know, I was calling Malzahar was going to be an awesome support like a month before everyone else caught on and he went into the LCS way back in December of 2016. I was talking about how Draven and Twitch have been the most powerful AD carries for the last 3 patches. So I think that I do get quite a bit of this right, even though occasionally, you know, I do kind of over or underestimate some things. Okay, I want to change this to after some playing. I did play today. I streamed for about 5 hours, so I didn't see a ton of Rek'Sai, and this is the first day of the patch, by the way. I did see quite a bit of Kindred, though, and I can tell you with confidence that she's not good right now. We'll get to why here in just a second. But let's go ahead and start with Rek'Sai. And I'll have a link as soon as I finish the tier list video. I'll link it up here in the top, so you can just jump right over to that if you want. And I'll tell you about the other stuff that the channel offers also at the end of the video if you're interested. Or look in the description. You can find more links about the channel, and you can also find timestamps for this video. So if you just want to hear about Rek'Sai or Kindred, or you just want to skip all the way down and see what I think about Blade the Ruined King or whatever, you can just skip around in the video. Okay, let's start with Rek'Sai. I think Rek'Sai is going to be very strong. I'm not sure if she's going to be the best jungler right now. This is kind of my tier list for best junglers right now. You know, Zach might be above Ivern. They're both really good. And so I try to blend also like competitive with solo queue to some extent. I skew mostly towards solo queue. I know that like LS, for example, talks almost exclusively about pro play, which really doesn't do a lot of good to people that aren't pros watching his videos. But I still think that Ivern's going to be probably top of the roost. Ivern does have more counters now after the nerf last patch to make him a bit more vulnerable early game, but I still think he's super strong. I'll talk about this, like the junglers and every other role more in the meta-analysis video, the tier list meta-analysis. These are 1 and 1A. They're both very good. I think Rek'Sai honestly would fit right up there, very close to that. And we'll talk about why here in just a second. I think Master Yi is still a stomp champion. He's very good in solo queue, especially at Platinum and under. And I think that Kha'Zix is going to be a returning star for solo queue for the reasons I'll describe in this video. Okay. So what's up with Rek'Sai? What are these changes? Now, you can see the changes directly in the patch notes here, but I like to go to League Wikia just so that we get a nice, clear overview, because sometimes some of these numbers, they just won't make any sense unless you see the entire setup and all the numbers laid out for you. So that's what we're going to do. So I left a link here. We're just going to go over to League Wikia, check out Rek'Sai. So what are some things that have changed about Rek'Sai that make her a lot better? Now, remember, Rek'Sai used to be a very top-tier jungler back in, I think it was the winter of 2016. She was a top-tier jungler, and they nerfed her all kinds of different ways. They probably nerfed her 5 or 6 different times to take her out of the meta, basically. And she used to be sort of like just a tanky disruptor, bruiser type of champion, and she had some unique traits in professional play that made her helpful, such as her tremor sense, giving information about the enemy and just her ability to warp around the map. So that's all changed. I think that now she's going to be much more of, not necessarily an assassin, but pretty close, like a high burst damage 80 carry that can also kind of be a bruiser. So sort of akin to like a Graves or maybe a Kha'Zix, Rengar, things like that. She's got some defensive capabilities, but she's going to have a lot of burst damage. And I'll give you some numbers on that soon. But what changed about her? I think one of the major changes is that her Fury builds much, much faster now. I don't remember what it used to be, but now it's full in 4 hits. Does it say what it used to be? Yeah, it used to be 5 for basic attacks, and 10 for unburrowed abilities, and 2.5 additional units hit beyond the first hit by abilities. Okay, so if she gets multiple hits on multiple targets, she could maybe kind of stack it sort of fast. But now it's 25 for everything, which is massive, including basic attacks. We'll talk about why it's important to her combo here in just a second, but this is big. Like, you can fill up that bar really, really quickly early on, and there's some big benefits for that. Now, she does gain health over time, and this looks like this is bad. This is over 5 seconds. But if you look at it, like, that's 40% cheaper, or 40% faster that she gets this. So if you do something like 450 in the best scenario times 0.6, you get to 270. So it is less, decidedly less health. However, it's, trust me, this faster Fury generation, she's going to be able to fill it up and again and again and again, and especially with this burrow unburrow timer, being able to go into tunnels faster and things like that, she's going to be able to regenerate more often. But it's not going to matter as much because, like I said, she's going to be more of a burst champion rather than kind of a sustained tank. So this is a little bit of a nerf to her health, but I think, trust me, it'll be worth it when you see what's coming down the line here. Okay, first of all, let's look at Queen's Wrath. I believe they doubled the scaling on it, right? Yeah, so they decreased the overall damage, the base damage, but they doubled the scaling. So if you just have 100 AD, that's it, just 100 AD, then that is what it was. Not quite what it was before. You might need to get to, what would you need to get to, 150 or so? Let me see. So if you do one, let me just run some numbers here really quickly. Let's just say 200. Is 200? 200 is definitely going to do it, right? That's going to be 80 versus 40. Yeah, that's 40 more. Yeah, so I think about 150 is going to be the break-even point, maybe 125. I won't do the exact numbers on that really quickly, but it's not a huge deal. It's slightly less damage, but it has much better scaling later into the game. And basically what this is, if you're kind of newer to Rek'Sai, is it's on a 4-second cooldown. It makes your next 3 basic attacks within 5 seconds do bonus physical damage. So it does this plus the 40% bonus AD plus your normal attack damage. So it's a lot of damage, and it resets your auto attack, which means that if you attack, you press Q, then you get to attack again immediately. You don't have to wait on the cooldown for it. So it's just boom, boom. And that lets you stack this Fury faster, right? So you attack once, press Q again, boom, attack again. That's 50 Fury right there, right off the bat. So really nice. Prey Seeker actually has a ratio on it now. It didn't used to have an AD ratio, right? Yes. So now, and it does physical damage. Now, LS was talking about this. LS thinks that Rek'Sai is not going to be that great, and he thinks that Kindred is going to be great. And I completely disagree. I think Rek'Sai is going to be great both in solo queue and professional play, and I think that Kindred is going to be garbage in solo and professional play. Reasons we'll talk about here in a second. But I think this change to physical damage is a big deal. And he was saying that this actually could be bad because champions usually have less magic damage, but it makes it a lot easier to itemize if you have all physical damage or all magic damage. Both, it helps you in a lot of ways. So one of the major ways it helps you is if you need to get a penetration item. So if you, for some reason, need to get Mortal Reminder, you're trying to crack through tanks or whatever, and that's relevant. Perhaps even more relevant is Black Cleaver, which shreds armor. Now that is an item that's probably going to be very popular on her, and so having an extra 24% damage on that damage type is very important. And another one, I think that Death's Dance could also be very relevant on her, and the fact that it's physical damage means that it's also going to give you that extra lifesteal off of it. So I think that it's a big deal if they're turning it from physical, or from magical to physical rather, and adding that 0.4 bonus attack damage is a big deal. So once again, Higher bonus damage here, double the bonus, double the scaling. Has damage here, didn't used to have damage. You kind of start seeing a trend here. They're giving you a lot more ratio on her stuff. Now, Burrow, when she burrows into the ground, she gains extra movement speed, she can run through targets, she gets extra abilities, and she gets Tremor Sense to spot people out. So it's really nice for finding people in the jungle and fighting them, which she's going to be very, very good at dueling, particularly once she hits level 6. So you can get in there and really tear some people up and catch them off guard. So that's really helpful. Now, Unburrow. Now, this looks bad because they did take some damage off Unburrow. There's no way around that. And, you know, LS thought this was a huge deal. It's an okay deal. So they did take some damage off of it. You know, 90 damage is quite a bit. It knocks people up for the full 1 second, though, which is a big deal instead of 0.5 to 1. So it's the full 1 second and knocks everyone else back. So it isolates a target, which is pretty good. And they have this immunity and... Okay, so they nerfed the damage on this. Fair enough. However, they, like I said, they gave the ratios on this, and the ultimate, once you see that, is going to be a huge deal. Okay. So, pretty good damage there. We'll move down a little bit. Now, this is the thing that starts to get crazy, and this is something that I think LS overlooked, and I think a lot of people are going to overlook this. Furious Bite. Alright? Insane. Insane. Because of how fast you can generate this Fury. Right, so before, you know, if you're just every auto attack's giving you 5 Fury, you know, you hit people with abilities, it gives you 10 Fury. Now it gives you 25 for everything, including auto attacks, which means just auto attack, reset, auto attack, ability, boom, Furious Bite, which is the combo I'm going to talk about here in a second. And you get double damage as true damage. That is so disgusting with a 100 or a 0.85 bonus AD ratio on it. That is nasty. So yeah, if you it's true damage. So if you have this, you know, even level 1 50 damage, you have 100 AD, it's gonna give you 85 plus 50 is 135, doubled is 270 true damage. 270 true damage, and this is just level 1. That's a lot of damage. I mean, if you're just wondering, true damage, like if you do 270 damage, if someone were to have, let's say, 40 armor, which would be pretty basic, you'd do 100 divided by 140. Okay, so that armor would normally block 25% of that damage, or 29, roughly, percent of that damage. So, what did I say, 270? Means you're basically doing 29% more damage than it would appear. So that's like doing 350 physical damage on an ability. So imagine this chomp says deals 350 AD damage. God, it's just level 1, and it gets even nastier once you get more AD and once you get this scaled up higher. So it's on a 12-second cooldown, but that thing is going to execute some people. It's big time damage. So that's one thing that I think a ton of people are going to overlook, is that this was virtually irrelevant before because you almost never had full Fury. It took forever to charge it up, and you were never going to get the double true damage. But now you can get that double true damage probably in about 2 or 3 seconds in a fight. And, you know, if you get some cooldown reduction, you might even be able to bite twice in a fight. So it's a really, really huge boost to her burst damage. And the tunnel. Now, this is huge too. I mean, look at this. 2-second cooldown on being able to go through tunnels. You're going to be able to zip across this map so fast. You're going to have so much mobility. Like, yeah, you don't have your ultimate, but you might as well, because you're going to be, like, just zipping through those tunnels across the whole map. And you can lay down tunnels a lot faster, too. So the re-entry used to be 6 seconds. Now it's 2 seconds. Now, you're probably going to level this last, so let's be real. It's not going to be that game breaking until the end. The bite is, well, actually no, you're going to be leveling this. You are going to be leveling this second, so it will be relevant in the mid game. You're going to be leveling your W last, I believe, with the burrow unburrow. So yeah, this will be relevant, and you can just zip around the map, as I said, and you can leave more tunnels. So that's going to be really sweet. And then this is the huge one. This is the new thing, Void Rush. Basically, it's I cannot believe it's 1500 range. Also, I just noticed that that's so far. But you have to tag someone with an ability. So basically, you hit them with an ability. They're tagged for 5 seconds, and then you can basically just point click, and you're gonna get on them. Probably. I don't. They might have a very small window where they can dash out of it and dodge, but you're unstoppable. So you know they can't hit you with anything to stun you. And landing behind them. So you might be able to outplay this. It's a really, really fast animation. In solo queue, I doubt many people are going to outplay this, but it's you might be able to flash it, but I highly doubt it that you're going to get away from it because it so it takes a little bit of time to cast, but you can't be stopped while you're casting it. But anyway, she dashes forward, 140% AD ratio, 100 base physical damage, and executes for 20 plus 20 at level 1. So if you're having a hard time like getting the picture of what's going on here, let me go ahead and give you this picture, okay? So let's say that you just have 100 bonus AD at level 6. Like you have warrior and just your runes, your masteries, all of that, about 100 bonus AD, okay? So you do 1 burrowed Q, that's your prey seeker, that's 160 damage. You do an unburrowed W, that's your knockup. So as you get on top of them, your auto attack, that's 170. Including just, remember you get your auto attack damage plus your bonus AD. So you have about 70 at level 6. That's 170. Then you use your unburrowed Q to activate your Queen's Wrath. You get your auto attack reset. So that's 170, 235. So that's like 400 burst damage there. Then you do another unburrowed Q to auto attack. So now you've hit them with 1, 2, 3 abilities while you're unburrowed. Use your R, because they're probably going to be dashing and running away from you at this point as much as they can. They just want to get away because you're going to be murdering them by this point. Use your R to gap close onto them for 416 damage on the execute. That's your 4th ability that you hit them with, and it puts you right behind them, and then you chomp them with the Q. That's going to be 270 true damage, which is going to be roughly 350 AD damage. And your grand total, ladies and gentlemen, about level 6, if you just have the warrior enchant, is 1646 damage. Over 1600 damage on 1 rotation. And this is a lot of like text. This is not that much. You hit them with 1 prey seeker skill shot. Just knock the prey seeker out of there. Let's say you don't even throw it. Whatever. Take 160 off. 1500 damage. You just basically unburrow to knock them up. They're suspended in the air for 1 second. You just auto Q reset for another auto. That's 2 hits automatically. They're not going to be able to dodge it because they're in the air. Probably by the time they land, you're going to be very close to finishing your 2nd animation. Attack animation. To hit them with this. And then you're going to get the R gap close into the ultimate. Or whatever. So it's a lot of damage, and it's going to be very, very difficult for people to avoid it. And so I think that Rek'Sai is going to be a monster. She's very, very good. And don't forget this Q also cleaves. So it does this damage to all surrounding enemies. This bonus physical damage to all surrounding enemies. So you're definitely going to want to max your Q first, then your E second, and then your W last. This is on a pretty low cooldown too. I mean, heck, even if you don't hit him with the ultimate's only doing 416. Like, you're still going to be over 1,000 damage just to knock up and just hit him with some Qs and bite him. Like, it's going to be a lot of dueling power. I don't think anyone's going to be able to hang with her in the jungle. I mean, like, maybe Lee Sin or Elise early on. I don't know. Like, it's dicey. So anyways, I think that the build on her, definitely warrior. There's no more Cinder Hulk. No more Cinder Hulk with her. And I think if you're not doing Cinder Hulk, I wouldn't do Titanic Hydra either. I know a lot of people love getting Hydra on her. I just really don't think that's where you want to be. It's only got 35 attack damage on it. It's got 450 health, which is decent. You know, this is not going to be scaling very heavily because you're not going to have a bunch of HP. So, you know, I personally, I wouldn't do it. I would just go more damage, like 2 or 3 damage items, and then get your tank items. And I would just fully commit to tank items. Like, I wouldn't even play around with Titanic Hydra. I would do Warrior Enchant, Ninja Tabi most of the time. Probably Cleaver, although Cleaver doesn't have a high AD ratio either. I would honestly consider Death's Dance. I know it sounds goofy, but having that extra 80 attack damage. We just saw how insane that scaling is off of her. I mean, you basically have, with a lot of your combos, what you've got, 40, hit them 3 times with this, that's 120, 160, 200, 200, 370, and a lot of that is true damage, which makes it even more. I mean, like, your rotation is basically like somewhere between 400 to 500% scaling on AD, which is absolutely like through the roof bonkers. So you want as much AD as you can get on her without being ridiculous. So I think Death Stance is, like, and by ridiculous I mean getting like crit items like Infinity Edge and things like that. I think that Death Stance is perfect, honestly. You're going to gain all of that health off of all of her abilities, and as we just saw, she gets a lot of damage. Now, the true damage, interestingly enough, is not going to heal you, because it's physical, it's true damage instead of physical damage. But everything else is going to do a ton of damage to you. Or a ton of damage, a ton of healing for you, I should say. So, I really like this item. Also, it gives you time, you know, that 30%, so that'll give you time to finish your rotation, then burrow underground and heal. So I really think this could be pretty good. Death Stance. I mean, the classic item that you would get with her, well, other than Titanic Hydra, is probably Black Cleaver. Which, once again, that only has 40 AD on it. It has a cooldown reduction in the shred, but in the health. So I do think that Cleaver needs to be in there somewhere. This also has great sticking power and great shred, and all of your abilities are going to shred. So you would probably want to go Warrior Cleaver, although, you know, I think, like I said, I think there is a legit argument for going Death Stance before you get Cleaver. Sterix might actually be pretty good in there, just to give you that little burst shield, or a GA, something like that. Like, there's a lot of different things you can build with her. But I think it's Warrior into either Death Stance or Cleaver. You could get all 3 of those if you're really running hot. And then I would just go for some tank items like maybe Dead Man's Plate or Spirit Visage. The Spirit Visage would be nice. It would help you with your own healing. It would have some nice synergy with Death Stance. You could go Ravenous Hydra if you really wanted to. But I don't know. I still think that Death Stance would be better than Ravenous Hydra on her. But yeah, I think this this is going to be really, really strong build. And you could do a GA in here also if you wanted to. So I think it's pretty good. But yeah, Warrior's a must, as I said earlier. So you get that nice power spike as soon as you pick it up. HP items now give a lot less HP than they used to, like the Dead Man's Plate, the Spirit Visage. And it's easier to trigger heal more often on Burrow, because you can just pop in and out of Burrow and gain the heal more often. So I think the Unburrow is... That on a pretty low cooldown. Let me see. It's on a 1 second cooldown, and burrowing is only 4 seconds cooldown. So the tunnels are, so basically you can just pop right up. Once you pop up, generate that 100 fury, duck in, burrow, you know, maybe take one of these tunnels, go back out, wait on some cooldown, pop back in, burrow up, hit them with the Queen's Wrath, hit them with all this other stuff, or use the tunnel just to go over to somebody else. Start messing with somebody else. All this stuff's on a really low cooldown. Max out your Fury again, go back underground, heal up some more. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for healing in there, which means that's going to give you time. Death Stance is going to give you time to let that healing kick in before you get killed. So overall, yeah, I think she's going to be super, super strong. The one that I saw today had no idea what was going on. They'd never played Rek'Sai before. It was just the normal game, so, you know, whatever. But I think she's going to be really good. Now, LS was comparing her to Kha'Zix. I think she's probably going to be better than Kha'Zix in the jungle. She just has a lot more mobility. I think her burst damage is much higher, especially against non-isolated targets. I think she has more utility with her knockup. Just don't forget, I mean, this Unburrow we just saw is on a 4 second cooldown, and that's a 1 second knockup, and it knocks everyone else back. So you can't knock up that same person for 10 seconds, but nothing's stopping you from going back down and knocking someone else up. You know, every 4 seconds you have a 1 second knockup, basically. So that's pretty helpful. And I think that she's innately, her base stats are higher, I believe, in terms of tankiness. Yeah, I mean, she gets pretty good health scaling. There we go. Pretty good health scaling, pretty good like base armor and magic resist. And she has that innate healing, and especially if you get Death Stance. I think she's going to be really, really good. So like I said, probably a top 3 jungler. Okay, let's talk about the next champion. Okay, 25 minutes. I got to pick it up. I'm really excited about her. I think she's going to be really good. We'll spend most of the time talking about the reworks, and then the other stuff we should be able to move a little bit faster. Okay, let's talk about Kindred. She's okay. I'm not sure if she's better or worse than she used to be, but I think she's a trap. I think that a lot of people are going to hype her up, and I don't think she's going to be that good. Now, anecdotally, I did play today. It was kind of a rough day on stream, but we had several Kindreds, and every single one of them disappointed, like astronomically disappointed, like really, really bad. Now, it was people who probably aren't as familiar with Kindred. I guess that one did. Oh, how did she do? She did okay, I guess, that game, right? Yeah, 666. She's okay. I mean, her damage was so. Look at that, 12,000 damage. Like, I did 50% more as a support. Like, I know I'm Zyra, but that's ridiculous on a champion that's supposed to be like a hard carry. And you know, it got to 31 minutes. Like, she had her Hurricane. She chose to get BOTRK and Bloodrazor, which is awful. Talk about why here in just a second, but anyways, like, she had stuff and she just doesn't do anything. So why is that? What's up with that? What's weak about Kindred? Okay, well, they talk about all of these changes here. The main thing that you need to understand about Kindred right now is that her itemization is poor. Okay, so the main problem is it no longer deals a percent of her target's current health based on passive stacks. Alright, so this was a big thing in the past with Kindred, where she got extra on-hit damage. There's a reason to get a lot of attack speed with Kindred because she had an on-hit ability. So whenever she hit people, it has a bonus effect. Most champions that want a lot of on-hit have bonus effects that are good. So for example, Vayne wants a lot of attack speed because she has Silver Bolts, right? She gets this on hit. And, you know, there's just a variety of other champions. Like Master Yi wants a lot of attack speed because he gets those extra on hit procs from his passive, and he gets more auto attacks in whenever he puts on his Wuju style. So she doesn't have that. She has no on hit anymore because it doesn't have that. So that's something you need to understand. Attack speed is not going to be that great on her. Certainly not as good as it used to be because she doesn't have an on hit mechanic anymore. The best you're gonna get now is this. Wolf gets 50% of her bonus attack speed. He gets some scaling with her attack speed, which is okay, but it's not great. And she gets all this attack speed, steroid here, but there's just no, like, reason for her to have all of that attack speed because she's not, like, stacking anything up like she used to be able to do. So that's number one, is that's really awkward itemization-wise. Another thing that's awkward is they made her Wolf, like, they made these two magic damage. So that is bad. In my opinion, that's bad. I mean, LS thinks it's good because it's mixed damage. I disagree because now it's difficult for you to itemize. Like, it does make it difficult, somewhat difficult for your enemies to itemize against you. But now you can't use penetration. So if they have a tank and you really need to get like a Mortal Reminder or something to try to stop that Zac from just tearing everybody up, you're not going to benefit very heavily from that because your W and your E are not going to get any extra scaling. That's a very realistic scenario. There's going to be a lot of Zacs if he's not banned, and you really need a Mortal Reminder against him, both to cut his armor and to cut his healing. But it's not going to help you with your W or your E anymore. That sucks. That's really bad. Also, this takes Death Stance out of the equation, because this actually would be a pretty cool interaction if you got to heal for all of this damage that Wolf was doing here, and the Mounting Dread, you got to heal for all of that off of Death Stance, because remember, Death Stance heals off of all physical damage, not just your own auto attacks. So that would actually be really, really good if this was physical damage on Kindred. But it doesn't happen. She doesn't get that. So that's a really, like, undercover, like, stealth nerf, and that sucks really bad. They also lowered the bonus attack damage on Wolf. So now he does get 1.5% of the target's current health as damage, plus an additional so much per like mark, whatever, right? So it's going to be like 5% or something current damage. It's just okay, but it's not going to attack that much. It doesn't really have a lot of scaling with attack speed anymore. It only gets 50% scaling, so that's pretty rough. Okay, so here's the thing. Like, Kindred has this fantasy, right, where you can stack it up and go infinite. You know, I've already seen the YouTube videos out there. They were out, like, weeks ago. Kindred can outrange towers, like, overpowered. You know, all the YouTube Illuminati's coming out in full force for Kindred. It's not going to happen in solo queue. Like, she gets 75 extra range on her first 4 marks. And then she only gets 25 for the next 4. I'm here to tell you, it starts getting really, really hard to get free marks once you get past 7. Once you get to 8, you got to start taking Rift Herald, Baron, or Dragons to get your neutral marks. And you have to get kills on the specific marked targets. You have to get the last hit, I'm pretty sure. It says takedowns. It does not say assists, it says takedowns. Alright, takedown is kill. Okay. Okay, so it does include assists. Okay, so that makes it a little bit better, but still, like, it's gonna. I still feel like it's gonna be really hard to get enough stacks in most games. Like maybe in like silver and bronze or something when there's just a zillion kills going on, like you might be able to pull that off. But it's gonna take her a long time to come online. So you can do your Q. You get attack speed. But yeah, it doesn't increase the damage. It increases your attack speed. So once again, it's giving you attack speed, but there's no teeth behind that bite because you don't have any like big on hit. 0.2 to total to 0.65 bonus. It's okay, but once again, like they're trying to get you to get all this extra attack speed stuff. You know, they make you want to try to get things like Hurricane. Do not build Blade the Ruin King on her, please. I know that gives you something for on hit, but it's garbage. Like, do not get that item now, especially after the nerfs. I mean, it's okay. Once again, this is kind of a wash in terms of damage. It's okay. But they're making her more attack speed instead of like burst damage. So it's going to make her have a really hard time early in the game. Until you start getting a lot of critical strike. And he deals some current health. It's okay. They lowered the ratio on him. This is huge. The magic damage. Mounting Dread. 8% of the target's missing health plus an additional 0.5%. Okay, no longer deals extra damage. It's missing health rather than max health. Base damage, astronomically lower. Slightly higher bonus attack damage scaling. So you're going to get some better scaling like really late into the game, but you can critically strike targets. You know, if you have 50% crit, you can get that up to a 40% critical strike, which is okay. I mean, here the bottom line is these changes are cute, but it doesn't fix what Kindred's problem has been, which is she can get bullied out and beaten up really hardcore early on in the game. She has virtually no CC, so she can't gank pre-6 hardly. It's very predictable what she's going to do because you can see the mark on the screen, so you can go intercept her, you can gank, you can ward, set it up. Like, it's very telegraphed for most people what she wants to do. And this is what happened in games where I saw Kindred. She would try to go down and get the scuttle because it's marked, and then the jungler and mid laner would jump out of a bush and kill her because they know she's going to be there and they've got it warded. So it's very telegraphed, very easy to read, particularly at probably Platinum and higher. She can't duel anybody early on. She is going to have some scaling, but is her scaling really that much higher than someone like Kha'Zix or really that much higher than like a Master Yi? I think not. So yeah, she's got some scaling. She does have some range. but she's very squishy. She has no crowd control. She has very low utility. Like, her ultimate is nice. Like, that's some good utility. That can backfire. It depends on the composition, though. If the enemy has a Janna or something, that's going to be really bad when they blow you out of that and heal their team. Like, there are some problems. So the ultimate is typically good, but it can also create some problems. Like, it's good, but I'm not sure that it's good enough to warrant all this other stuff. And it still had a massive cooldown of like 160. So, you know, I just think she's going to be outclassed. I think that any top tier jungler is just going to smash her. Like, and they know they can smash her. Like, Lucian can just go into her jungle and just be like, what are you going to do about it? And she's not going to do anything. She's going to run away. Because Lucian's going to crush her. Elise is going to crush her. New Rek'Sai is going to crush her. Kha'Zix will crush her. Just anybody can walk her. Mundo can crush her. I don't know if that's true, but maybe. I mean, she's got nothing early game. And she takes a long time to scale, and the scaling's just not worth the reward. This sounds cute, but it's just going to be too difficult to get a ton of stacks, I think. Like, the most you're going to get in a game is 8. You know, that'll put you at 600 range, which is nice. But, you know, I think that, like, you have to get in close for this anyways. Like, the target range on your arrows is 340. So, yeah, they're giving you all this extra range, I think. I don't know. There's not a lot of synergy. I think that nerfing all of her burst damage and making this magic damage and all that, like, just all the stuff that I talked about, is just really problematic. I think she's going to have a hard time against virtually anybody. And, you know, I think if you do want to build her, you need to go warrior. Like, you have to have some kind of early game dueling power. Do not go that on hit crap. Do not go whatever that thing is called. Where was it? Was it this guy? This is exactly what not to build. Okay? Like, do not build Blood Razor. Do not build Blade of the Ruined King. I mean, I guess 4% of target's max health is bonus. I guess you have to go Blood Razor, right? Because you need some kind of on hit, and then you're trying to get this for on hit too. The Blade of the Ruined King. I guess you have to get this because I just don't know what else she can get, because she can't benefit from Death's Dance. So I guess you're kind of priced. You have to get these items. You're forced to get them with Hurricane. But I mean, she has Hurricane, Blade of the Ruined King, and Enchantment Blood Razor, and she does like not half. She has like 40% less damage than the support. And it's not like I was like out of control as support. I had like 4 kills. Like, I wasn't even, like, out of control balling. I just had a Liandry's Torment and a Void Staff. And I didn't even get this Void Staff until the game was basically over. Like, most of the game, I only had Liandry's Torment. Yeah, I got Void Staff at 29 minutes into the game. In a 31-minute game. I didn't even use it in a fight, really. Like, and I only got Liandry's at 21 minutes. It's not like we were completely steamrolling this game. So, you know, for the vast majority of the game, you know, I was just grasping at straws. You know, I just had like the Haunting Guys, Sork boots, and eventually I got a Liandry's, and I outdamaged her. I did like, you know, 40% more damage than she did. I mean, that should be an indicator right there. Like, just please don't play her. If you care about your elo, do not play Kindred. Definitely do not play her AD carry. But if you want to play her, I guess you have to go for the on hit build. It feels really underwhelming, and it seemed really underwhelming when I saw it 3 times a day. So let's talk about all this. Unusual scaling. It's got a lot of problems. I mean, another thing compositionally, like I just mentioned, is that she doesn't bring the things that you need in solo queue to win, which is initiation, crowd control, defensive steroids. She doesn't have any of that. Almost all of the good junglers have at least one of those things. Or really high damage. She doesn't have high damage either in the early game. So she has no initiation, she has no crowd control, and she has no defense. Or defensive steroids. Whereas Rek'Sai has some defensive steroids, she has some CC with her knockups, decent initiation, and just like through the roof damage. So yeah, and I think that you need these things, especially because there's lots of assassins in the mid and the top lane that aren't going to be having a lot of crowd control. And then there's enchanter supports, which really lack initiation a lot of the time. So, you know, the biggest problem with a lot of compositions these days is there just isn't a lot of initiation. So I think she's just going to get just crushed by any of the major junglers. Don't play her. Okay, Malzahar. I'm working on time. A little rough, Gutted as support. Absolutely gutted. And this is something I disagreed with almost everything that LS said in his videos. And I keep talking to LS because he's thought of as sort of one of the greatest minds of League of Legends. So, I mean, he is a really smart guy. He's great. But, you know, I disagree with a lot of the stuff that he says. I mean, I know he's got a higher pedigree than I do, but he's also kind of up in the clouds and doesn't play a ton of solo queue, especially at Platinum and lower. Which is where I think most people viewing this video will be. So I think that Malzahar's got some big problems after this change. So let's figure out why. I mean, the basic thing is they just took his voidlings out. Like, they just basically don't exist anymore. You just might as well pretend this button doesn't exist. And they absolutely gutted the voidlings. So no longer has a charge system. He's got an 8-second cooldown. Whatever, that's fine. That's not a big deal. A little bit more mana cost. Okay, sure. Not a huge deal. He gains a stack whenever he casts abilities. Okay, so they're trying to make it combo-ish is what it seems like. You're like, okay, cool. You could have up to 3 voidlings at a time. That seems pretty good. No multiplication of voidlings. Really, really bad. Really, really bad. That was their whole thing, is if you put them on them early enough and they multiply, that's when you start getting the insane damage, where they can't fight them. You ever played, like, support Malzahar when he was good? He was already, like, bad. He was not getting picked in the LCS at all after his last round of nerfs. He wasn't picked at Worlds, I don't think, once. Or not Worlds, but MSI, from what I can remember. He was never picked. So why are they kicking him in the face again? I don't understand. Like, anyways, so you can't get additional voidlings. So what would happen previously is, especially if you ulted somebody and dropped 2 voidlings on them, those 2 voidlings attacked, they multiplied, made 4 voidlings. Those 4 voidlings attacked, they multiplied, made 8 voidlings. Okay, so you would have 8 voidlings in someone's face, and then it couldn't multiply anymore. I think that was after a recent, like, they used to be able to multiply even beyond that. But they made it to where at 9 seconds they couldn't multiply anymore. So you used to be able to get, depending on how it panned out, like, at least 4 voidlings, if not 6 to 8. You get a lot of voidlings. So being able to only have 3, really bad. The cast range is 150. Are you kidding me right now, Ryan? 150? That's melee. Like, basically, you cast it at your foot, and it has to, like, walk over there, waddle over there, like, super slow. They already nerfed the speed on it, and they nerfed the speed again. Like, no one's going to let those things go touch them. Like, you might say, oh, well, if you ult them, well, your ult range is, like, 650 or something, or 550 maybe. Like, your ult's going to be done by the time they waddle over there. Yeah, it's 700 range. By the time this thing waddles over there, it's going to take 2.5 seconds for it to walk over there. Not, like, literally, but almost. Like, it might get in 1 auto attack. That's so dumb. You might not even be able to cast it over walls anymore. Like, one thing you used to be able to do with these is kind of like bush check with them. You can't even do that anymore. So, it's just gross. So they don't multiply. They get cast in melee range, which is basically worthless. And down here, they get killed at all levels. Even if you have 5 points in W, even if you're level 18 with 5 points in W, and just like stats out the wazoo, like health, AP, everything, doesn't matter. 1 basic attack kills voidlings regardless of health. From champions. So let me get this straight. You cast a voidling, and they just auto attack it. Or it's dead. I mean, really, Riot? Like, not even 2 attacks? Like, not even you have to coordinate with your support and, like, you know, AD carry and the other person auto attacks it? No, just straight up 1 attack from anybody kills it. Absolute garbage. Like, that's terrible. Then they no longer gain 100% movement speed. So they're not even fast. Whenever, and their base movement speed was nerfed from 451 to 400. So they just move like my grandma at this point. People can just like walk away from them, and they can just auto attack them once and kill them. Now they're worth less gold, so I guess when your minions don't do anything, at least the enemy's not getting gold off of it. That's just absolutely absurd. They get some resistant armor and stuff like that. This is for like area of effect abilities, I guess. They just don't get like swept out immediately. But they only have like 65 to 200 damage. Like any kind of area of effect ability, especially later on in the game, is still going to one-shot them. Oh, and they don't do any damage either, so who cares? Like, you know, you would think if they nerfed them this hard that they should hit like a truck, like do 100 damage if they manage to auto attack or something like that, because it's not going to happen often. No, they actually nerfed the damage on it a lot too. So it goes from, get this, 30 base damage, attack damage, 30 is what it used to be at level 1 with a 0.4 bonus attack damage ratio. Not that you'd build AD on Malzahar, but it did. To 5 at level 1. Literally. 30 damage to 5 damage. I mean, what is that, an 80% damage reduction or something? I think it's almost literally 80%. Let me see. Yeah, it's an 83% damage reduction at level 1. And now it doesn't even matter how many points you put into it. You can level this up 3 points like you used to do going to level 5. It's still only going to do 10 instead of 40. Okay, so it's never going to hit anyone ever again. And when it does, it's going to do like less damage than a lane minion. Bonus damage. Basically nothing. Oh, they put the 0.4 damage on the bonus damage, so now it's magic damage. Okay, whatever, doesn't matter. This does less damage, slightly more at level 1, 2 more damage. And just way less as it goes on. Attack speed scales up marginally over time, still god-awful. Okay, all damage is magic, which is good. That's good for spell penetration. Duration is much lower. It doesn't. This thing's never going to last for 10 seconds. It's not going to last more than 2 seconds most of the time. All right, so basically, this is just absolute garbage. Like, this ability is just absolute trash. Like, the only time you would ever use this is if you're mid lane Malzahar just to push lane or something like that. So I guess you can still just throw them out there to push lane, and they can just help you, you know, kill things faster with your E. So basically, it's just a pushing tool. It's not going to do any damage in combat anymore. Now, Call of the Void, this sounds like a buff. I think it's a nerf. And the reason is they have half a second almost to respond. So basically, these 2 pillars are going to open up next to somebody, and they're going to go, oh crap, there's 2 pillars, and just walk out of it. That's awful. Like, the cast time is less. Yes, okay, so you get like 1/4 of a second less cast time, but you get like 4/10 of a second. So that's an overall 0.15 longer, like, complete execution. And now this, there was a cast, but as soon as you finished the cast, it was like instant hit him. There was no delay before firing. It's like, if you could time it perfectly, you know, just get used to it, and then you just cast, kills it, boom, helpful. Now this, now they get to see where you're going to put it. So they're like, oh, there's those 2 pillars. Now I'm going to move this way. So now they get to see where you're going and move, or flash, or dash, or whatever they want to do to get out of it. It does have a 0.1 ratio, which is nice. So it scales a little bit better. Malefic Visions is a 0.8 ratio, so it's pretty good. Now this is a buff. This is a buff. And this, if Malzahar is played, he will be played in the middle lane, and this is why, if it gets buffed. This is really, really high scaling. Really high scaling. So the null zone damage, which is the little circle underneath Malzahar, used to do, you know, this amount of damage. Now it does less, but it has a 1.15 ability power ratio and flat damage on it. So that's really high. That's really high damage. Well, I mean, not like LeBlanc really high damage or Cassin really high damage, but it's like it's pretty good damage. So I mean, he might get picked as a counter pick to Ahri specifically, or maybe a couple of other really mobile mages like maybe a LeBlanc, something like that. And so your combo ultimately would look something like this. A full combo, just assume no minions because that's a good assumption on this patch. Yeah, just assume no minions. Your full combo, if you have 100 AP, your E is going to last 7 seconds because you're going to cast it on him. And then you're going to cast your R, which is going to refresh it. And then you're going to cast your Q after that and hit him, which is going to refresh it. And then you're going to auto attack. So 7 seconds, it's going to be 385 damage on your E, because remember, your R and your Q reset the timing on it. Refresh the timing. Your R is going to do 303 at level 6, which is a lot. Your Q is going to do 150, and your auto attack is going to do 67. So it does 905 total combo damage with no minions, which is pretty good. But it's not Rek'Sai good. It's not like 1600 damage good. But it's pretty good. That's enough to put a pretty big dent in a lot of champions in the mid lane. So, you know, his full combo will still be okay. He does have the utility of being able to, like, point click lock somebody down for 2.5 seconds, which is a big deal. If they don't get QSS, especially if they're an AP champion. It is possible you could see him as support if you really want that point click lockdown and you're not worried about the minions. You're just going to get bullied out real hard early because you're going to have, like, no wave pressure hardly. Unless you're casting your E and your minion to clear the wave and you're just counting on your AD carry to be able to last hit. Which is iffy, but... You could maybe go like Relic Shield or something, and nah, that sounds awful. I was about to say, if you're going to take last hits, you might as well give it over to your AD carry with Relic Shield, but I don't know. I think he's going to be bad as support. He was already bad. He might come back to mid lane. I don't think he's going to make a huge splash. I think it's a massive nerf for the W. The R, if he does get played, it'll be because of the R, but I don't think he's going to be a top tier. He might be picked specifically as a counter to Ahri. I think Cassin will just crush him. But he's alright. Alright, Ahri got pretty big nerf. And, you know, LS was dismissing Ahri, like, who cares, whatever. Ahri is a terror in solo queue. Ahri is very, very good in solo queue, and she has been for a while, and that's why they're nerfing her. At many levels of play. And the reason is she's very safe. So she does a lot of burst damage, and she has like 3 flashes every minute. So you can miss position pretty poorly and get caught out a lot. And not only get away, but you can actually turn it around and kill people. So she's extremely safe. She has great wave clear, pretty good scaling, nice burst damage, great at repositioning. So she's just a really good jack of all trades. So they're taking away a lot of her guaranteed damage. I mean, that's the thing too, is you don't even have to hit your skill shots really as hard. Like, you can miss your Q and miss your E and still kill people sometimes with just Foxfire and Spirit Rush. That's how ridiculous she is, especially with the Runeblade build. So I think that this is pretty good. So her ratio's down. She gets 25% less scaling on her W. Her charm goes up a little bit, and her Spirit Rush goes down about 17%. So they're going to try to make you hit the charm to get most of your damage back. So I like that. It makes you actually land some skill shots with her. It's okay. I think she'll still be a top tier support. This really doesn't hurt why she's that good. It will take down her damage a little bit, but I still think she'll be pretty competitive as a top tier support. I think Kassadin's way better, but I think that Ahri, after these nerfs, Kassadin's way better, but I think that Ahri will still be a force. I think she's pretty good for solo queue. I don't think she'll see play in pro play, but she's pretty good. Caitlyn, pretty good nerf, but I gotta tell you, I played with some Caitlyn's today and against some Caitlyn's, and I really don't think this is a big deal for her. I thought it was gonna be bigger than it was. But the nerf to her attack speed doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. I wasn't sure when I wrote down the guide. Like, sometimes the attack speed steroids can be pretty rough. I don't think it's going to matter. Runins is not going to matter that much for solo queue. And the reason why is there's just not a ton of times where you're actually hitting like 3 people with your hurricane bolts. Because solo queue is so chaotic, a lot of times it's just like 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 fights anyways. And you just don't have a lot of peel in solo queue, and so a lot of times as Kate, you're just constantly kiting backward and just hitting the tank that's running at you a lot of times. And which means you're not going to be hitting multiple targets. So, you know, it's not good. Like, it does suck for her. That interaction doesn't work anymore. But I don't think that's why she was really like strong to begin with. Like, I think it was a cute interaction, but she'll probably still end up getting Hurricane. But you know, what makes Caitlyn strong is her range in the early game. Her wave clear is extremely good. She can push to tower and pressure towers very early. She's the best meta support. I mean, the only one that might be better at pushing and threatening towers would be Sivir. But Sivir has much lower range, so she can't really hit the towers themselves, but she can push minions to tower. However, Caitlyn can actually threaten the towers, and she's so good at sieging with her traps. A really good Caitlyn with those traps just makes it so difficult to even last hit under tower, let alone like come out and actually try to fight her and contest her. So she's just the queen of siege. She's very good. She still has extremely high spike damage. I mean, if you've never like thought about this with Caitlyn, let me pull her up here. You know, people typically think of things like Jhin having high burst damage, or maybe Misfortune having high burst damage in the early game, right? Historically, Caitlyn has really high burst damage, and the reason is because of this snap trap. So, headshot damage, and by the way, the Ninja Tabi, we'll talk about here in a second, the Ninja Tabi nerf actually helps her out a lot, because her headshot mechanic is modified by the Ninja Tabi. So that actually buffs Caitlyn. So, you know, she got nerfed some, but that's a pretty big buff to her as well. So Caitlyn's next attack against enemies deals 50% bonus physical damage. And it can crit, basically, I believe is what all that's saying. So 50% bonus damage that can crit. Yordle Snap Trap, headshot damage increases by a certain amount plus AD. So let's say that you have that 70% total AD. That's not even bonus AD. So let's say that you have 100 AD. All right. So you're going to auto attack, or you're going to hit somebody with one of these headshots, okay? Okay, so that can crit also. So let's say that you're going to hit someone with 100 AD and you get a crit on a headshot that's, you know, that's from a Yordle Snap Trap. So let's say you're level 6. All right, going to have 62 damage, so you're going to get 162 damage. Oh, I get that up here. There we go. Okay, so you're going to have 162 damage. All right, that's your base auto attack damage. So 162. You're going to headshot them, so that's 50% bonus AD times 1.5. Then you're going to get this extra snap trap damage. Let's say that your traps... Well, you'd have to be at a late... Whatever. Let's just say it's even just a level 1 trap. I think you max your traps after your Q. I think you would max Q first. I think. And then traps. Max net last, definitely, but I think traps are second. So then you get plus 30. Plus 70% total AD, so that's 0.7, so that's 273, so that's okay, so 275. What the other one was 173. Something like that. So 448. crit. So, you know, that's going to be like a 900 damage crit. It's going to be a double damage crit. I think this might even go up by even more. I don't know. I'm not going to go through all the math. That's why she does a lot of damage, okay? Like, just one Yordle Snap Trap headshot is going to be like 900 damage, even if you only have 100 AD if you crit. So that's what makes Caitlyn insane, is that you get these massive crits. And if you hit someone with a net, that also gives them an additional headshot, which will not have the Yordle Snap Trap bonus, but it'll be, you know, a lot of extra damage. So this is why, you know, if Caitlyn full combos you, so if you step on a trap, she headshots you, and then nets backward, hits you with the net, headshots you again, and while she's flying through the air, hits you with a Q, and then ults, it's going to do like over 2,000 damage. Like, you're going to be one-shotted. So, you know, against a good Caitlyn that, you know, knows how to do the trap, auto, net backward, Q, auto, it's just massive, massive burst damage. So she does decent sustained damage, but it's mostly about her zoning, and her burst damage is what makes her good. And she still has all of that. So I think that the, I'm going to say good. I can say confidently after playing with and against a couple of Kates today that it's still going to be good with good Kates. I think that Draven, Twitch, and Xayah are probably better than she is, but now she's kind of like a niche, like, burst crit type of champion. So I think she's still good, but I think she's more of a zoner burst, and she's going to lose some of her sustained damage. Okay, this is taking a while. We'll move on a little bit faster here. Mundo doesn't matter. As long as Executioner's Calling is an item in League of Legends, then Mundo's not going to matter. Lee Sin, this is probably a buff for Lee Sin. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal, but it can help out some people with Lee Sin. I don't think, you know, a slight delay on the Vanguard kick is a huge deal. I think a lot of Lee Sin is decision-making. And so, you know, I don't think this is going to be a huge deal for Lee. It's nice, but I don't think it's a big deal. Okay, this is a pretty substantial nerf, I think. Now, LS was saying this is probably only going to matter for mid-Lucian. I think Lucian's not in a great spot right now, honestly. I think he's actively bad. And the reason is, I think he loses to every other major AD carry. I think Draven just completely massacres him in the early game. I think he doesn't have the range to pressure Twitch enough early, and Twitch just massacres him later in the game. I think that Xayah can beat him up and outrange him. I think that Caitlyn can beat him up and outrange him. I mean, Lucian's problem for me is that he only has 500 range, which is garbage. So now he can't even, like, spam his abilities as much as he used to. Boy, the Ruined King just got nerfed. It was already a garbage item, so now it's even more garbage. They nerfed lethality, which used to be good on him. I would not play Lucian right now. I just wouldn't do it. If you're gonna play Lucian, I would go Essence Reaver. I mean, they're basically telling you to play Essence Reaver. So they tell you right here, like, basically go Essence Reaver. Like, I think if you're gonna be a good Lucian, you need to either build Essence Reaver or Death's Dance, or maybe both with him. Like, I think that the Death's Dance, like, he does kind of need a lifesteal item early on because he gets beaten up a lot of times in lane because he gets outranged. I don't know. BOTRK does give you that extra burst damage at level 6 that you kind of need to be able to complete all ends, but I don't know. Just don't play Lucian. Just don't do it. If you want to win in solo queue, just don't play Lucian. Play Draven instead. Malphite, not going to matter. Still pretty much irrelevant. I mean, the thing about Malphite is he kind of counters some, like, he's part of the Bronze Odia that the Odd One talked about many, many years ago, where he's a press R champ. If he doesn't have his R, he's worthless, and that's okay, I guess, but he's just way, way too ult reliant. I think if you like Malphite, try out like something like Wukong. He has a knockup also, but he does more damage and he has more relevant stuff that he can do. He has armor shred and stuff like that. Maokai, I think this sucks. This is really like, this is really just overkilling support Maokai, I think. Oh. Thank you. I'm still drinking on that one. Thank you. So now he has half the scaling, only 1% of the target's maximum health instead of 2%. Not a huge deal, but it does double. Remember, if it's in the bush, it doubles. So, you know, if you have 100 AP, then you used to be able to do, you know, 4% more of the target's max health, which is a big deal. But now you're only going to do 2% more max health. So that 1% doubles to 2% with the bushes. So it's a pretty big nerf. Saplings now move a lot slower. Unless you get mobility boots, which is not really where you want to be. Like, I usually either want to go Sork boots, or if you're going tanky, go like Ninja Tabi boots or something like that, but not a huge deal. But it is okay. I'm not really sure why they mess with this, but you get less damage up front, and then 67% more over time. So I guess you can't be outright bursted before you use heal, or before your Janna shields you, or your Soraka heals you, or whatever. Now, this is a big one. It goes from up to 70 seconds in a bush down to 30. That is massive, massive nerf, because what that means is you can't stack up these death bushes anymore. Like, you used to be able to get a lot of cooldown reduction if you wanted to, or just some cooldown reduction, and just like spam these things in bushes. Spam those E's in bushes, and then someone would walk up and take like 4 saplings to the face and get killed. Not going to happen anymore, because the cooldown has been like, or the duration has been cut more than in half. You know, cut by like a lot. 40 out of 70. That's a big deal. Now you get 2.5% of Maokai's bonus health in extra seconds. So I guess if you get to 1,000 bonus health, you can get to 55. If you get to 1,500 bonus health, you can probably get back to 70%. But then they're not going to be doing damage because you're going to have all that health. So they're basically like wanting this to be kind of utility on the sapling toss and not like one-shot ability. So they want you to build tank, and this to just kind of be a little bit extra on the side. So he's okay. But I still think, you know, I was never huge on him, even before he got nerfed. He's okay, but he's very gimmicky. A good support can outplay him in the bush. You can just walk up and then bait the saplings away. If you have proper warding, people aren't going to be able to sneak up on you with the saplings a lot of the time. You know, like a Janna and other people can shield through sapling burst. So it's okay. There's just even less reason to pick him now than there has been in the past. I think if you do want to play him, you should play him as a hybrid. So, like, you can maybe go something like Ninja Tabi, Eye of the Equinox for some tankiness, Redemption. You can throw a Leandri's Torment in there so that you do, you know, a little bit more damage with your saplings, since they do apply a slow. And then just get more tank stuff like Knight's Vow and Abyssal Scepter, and just, like, use your ult and your Q just to be a disruptor in fights. I think it's okay. Although they did hurt his healing quite a bit, right? Yeah, the base healing just got absolutely crushed. So it went from 130 base healing to 65 at max level. Now it does have slightly higher scaling of like 1.5%. That's not going to make up for that. Yeah, that's just like straight up crush your healing. So you don't have as much healing off your sap magic, no free healing. So I just... The only role I would play him in is support, maybe only in very, very niche situations where you need a peel or tank, and for some reason you don't feel like playing Tahm Kench or Braum. Like, you need a little bit of AP damage that's also a tank. I guess. I don't know. I mean, maybe he's better than I thought. I do have a guide coming out on him. I'll do the best that I can to tell you how and where you can play him and how he can be viable. But he's gonna have some problems. But, you know, he might still be viable. I'll have to test it out a little bit more. Renekton, I think it's a nerfed Renekton. They reverted the changes. I thought the changes were good for him. They're trying to talk like it wasn't good, but from what I understand, you could cancel your W animation with your Q instead of having to have a Tiamat, which was really nice. So now you could just go like straight to Cleaver if you wanted to. So I don't know. Whatever. I still think Renekton's pretty good top, although I think there are probably better choices most of the time. Sion, doesn't matter. He's got a lot of problems. I mean, he's okay, but a lot of his stuff is just so telegraphed for higher elo players. And he's okay. Like, marginal increases to shield scaling, slightly lower cooldown. It's still really long. It's okay. Not a huge deal. Okay, so LS was saying this is not a big deal. I think this is a pretty big deal on Syndra. I don't think it's a deal breaker, but oh, I thought this was on her okay. I thought this was her stun, actually, the width of her stun. But still, like, your W is probably not going to miss, but it might. I mean, he was saying that good Syndras are going to hit it anyways, which is true to some extent, but that's also, you know, you could look at the other side of the coin. Like, good players are going to have a better chance to dodge this. I mean, good is a two-way street, you know? Like, there's good offense and good defense. Like, it makes it harder to hit. Like, that's all there is to it. Like, yeah, she's still going to hit it a lot, but there will be a certain percentage of times where she's not going to hit her W on somebody. So, I gotta say, I don't think it's a deal breaker, but any time where you have the width on something reduced by quite a lot, that's a big deal. That's what put Zyra in the gutter for a long time, like 2 or 3 seasons. Was a big one was they reduced the width on her E, then until they reworked her and gave her all these extra plants. So I think it's you know, I think she'll still be good, especially in pro play, but I mean, that definitely hurts. I think that the overall nerf to Banshee's Veil will be a good thing for Syndra. Well, it doesn't really matter because Syndra can break it with her balls anyways. Whatever. Syndra's still pretty good. She's weak to Assassin, so she's not going to be as good in solo queue, probably, but she's still going to be good in pro play. Although she can still completely wreck in solo queue also. Yasuo, I mean, this is worse for him. I think it's actually a pretty big deal. You know, LS was saying it's not a huge deal. I mean, this matters. Like, you only have 6 seconds. Like, that's 40% less duration on your Tempest Steel, which means you have a lot less time to be able to find a good spot to hit your tornado. So you're not always going to be sitting there, like, throwing your tornado up. Like, having this up is a lot of threat. And that's up, people have to back off, or they have to be very scared of you. And when it's up for a lot less duration, then they're not going to have to be scared. So it gives you 40% less of a window of intimidation. Now, I don't think that Yasuo was overpowered. I think he's okay. Like, I think he's a decent champion. But we all know that there are tons of Yasuos out there who just cannot execute the champion properly. He's very difficult to play correctly. And is he that much better than, like, is a good Yasuo that much better than a good Riven or a good Fiora? I would say probably not. I think all 3 of those champions can completely take over games if they're good on the champion. So I don't think that he uniquely needed to be targeted out here. He already had a problem. I would argue that he's probably the least successful of those 3. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. Let me see. Now, this is only going to give me for Platinum Plus, probably. Look at top lane. A Riven. Fiora. Yasuo. I mean, so statistically, Fiora and Riven are higher, as I expected they would be. I mean, I think both of them are far better than Yasuo is right now at top lane. So, I don't know. I don't get the nerf. I think it's a pretty significant nerf to him. I think you can still play him, but you're going to have less windows of power. And I really don't understand why they would do that before the new skin comes out. So I know people like Philol has said this several times. Oh, you know, Riot just buffs certain champions or just doesn't nerf them until after everyone buys their new skin. Kind of tongue-in-cheek, but kind of serious. It's not true. Like, they just nerf things whenever they want to nerf things, and they buff things whenever they want to buff them. This is a prime example. They have a really cool Yasuo skin coming out, and they just nerf the crap out of him right before that. And he's a very popular champion that people love to play. So, it's not a money grab. It just happens to coincide that way sometimes. But anyways, so whatever. I think he'll still be viable. He'll still be bad most of the time. Good Yasuo players will find ways around it. But it's unequivocally a nerf. You won't see him in pro play. Most of them will fail in solo queue. You might still see a highlight reel from some like challenger level Yasuo players. I wouldn't recommend playing him. Okay, Zac, you get an extra warning for an extra 0.25 seconds, which is kind of a big deal. I still think this guy's going to be obscenely overpowered. This is something that sort of snuck up on a lot of people. Now, they buffed the crap out of him. What do they do? Let me see. So when he got reworked, I didn't think he was that strong. I said he was probably the weaker of the three, and I think I was right. I think I said Sejuani was the strongest. No, I said that Zac was the second strongest. I think I said Sej was strongest. Zac was second strongest. I mean, what did I say? Let me just look and see. What was that, 7.9? Yeah. I just want to see if I like how I could have missed this. But I don't think I missed it. I think they buffed him in 7.10. And I may have overlooked that. Let me just look really quick here and just see. I was on the Sejuani thing pretty early, I believe. And then she got nerfed. I thought that nerf wouldn't be that big of a deal for her, but it turned out to be a bigger deal than I thought. Argon, Cinderhulk. When did they change those? Was it 7.10 they changed it? Anyways, whatever. So let's just look and see like what's up with Zac, because you're going to be seeing a lot of Zac. I think if you're a jungler, you should be trying to play or ban Zac every time. Okay, so he still has this. I think this is still basically the same. He just heals whenever he comes back together. He can do it once every 5 minutes. Not a huge deal. Now this is something, okay, this is what they changed. So they gave him health scaling on his ability, and they nerfed this. This used to be like 120 damage plus all of this, plus AP, which is pretty massive. So, you know, if he has 2,000 health, he gets plus 50 damage. So basically, you can just keep stacking health and get a ton of damage on this. Magic damage, slowing by 60%. Basic attack has a range of 300, so he gets a longer basic attack. Second stretching strike. Collision. Now, I don't know how long the collision animation is. I feel like it's pretty long, though. I feel like it's almost like half a second to a second. So this basically stuns two targets and pushes them, like, together. So you could put them right on traps or anything, you know, like that. It makes it basically a bullseye for any kind of skill shot to hit those targets. And it stuns them for at least half a second. I'm not sure exactly how long it is, but it's a pretty good chunk. So it's like a double stun for that amount of time. That's pretty good. 8% of the target's maximum health. I feel like that was buffed. 8% feels like a lot for something that has a 5-second cooldown. 4% of his current health heals him. Now, when he picks up a chunk, did they change how much that heals him for? Storing 4% of his maximum health. Okay, and then this is current health, right? Yeah, okay. And the elastic slingshot still does really heavy damage. And it knocks up for like that 1 second. That's something that they buffed. It used to be only knocks up for half a second, and now it can knock up for that full 1 second, which is a huge deal. So what they did was they buffed this to where it has scaling with his health and AP, which is massive. And then this knock up for 1 second chains together with his ultimate really, really well because it takes 1 second to charge. They have like, or 1.1 seconds to charge. So that makes it almost unavoidable. If he hits you with the slingshot, he's gonna let's bounce, and it's gonna kill you. If he manages to pull you back, you're basically dead. It's almost impossible to get out of that. That's pretty decent damage. It could pull so many units back into your team. And he lays out flat, which covers a pretty good radius, 300, which isn't massive, but anyways, yeah, he's really, really good. Really good. So I don't think that, you know, the change to him is going to make a huge deal. I mean, this is okay. Like, they have a little bit more time to outplay it, but he still has a ton of utility. He can just spam his little stretching strikes just to slam people together. I mean, when he slams people together and someone else chain stuns them, and then you press your ult and pull him back into the team, like, that's still really strong. Like, he's just really good. He's extremely good right now. Voiceover not gonna matter. So yeah, I think he's either he or Ivern are the best junglers. He might be the best jungler, and then Ivern I would think is probably second best. I think Rek'Sai's up there though. Okay, Banshees. I think this is a significant nerf. When I disagree with LS on this too. LS thought this is a good buff. I think this is a nerf. Now his reasoning is that he's like, oh well, it's more slot efficient, right? So basically, what they did was it gives you 270 worth of magic resist and charges you 300. So it's you lose a marginal amount of gold efficiency there. But the big deal is it's 300 extra gold to get this item. So that means it's a lot more painful to rush this as a mid laner because you're already giving up some AP to get this effect in mid lane, but it was really powerful to begin with. And a lot of champions don't need that much magic resist. Like, champions that need that much magic resist are going to go get Abyssal Scepter or Spirit Visage or Adaptive Helm or something else. So people that want Banshee's Veil, like, do not need that much. They just want the protection of the shield, a little bit of magic resist, and the ability power. That's what they're really after. So I personally think this is going to hurt Fiddle and Zyra because this was an item that I really like to get on them that made AP supports a little bit stronger. And gave them the protection from engage, like Blitzcrank Hook, Lux Binds, Morg Binds, all that kind of stuff. It gave them protection, but also gave them AP. That was really good. 300, you can't get this anymore. It's a really big deal, especially for supports. 300 gold. There's a lot of extra gold. So I think this item's just going to disappear. I don't think a lot of people are going to get this anymore. Yeah, it's cost efficient, but who gives a crap? Like, you almost never get to 6 items anyways. Everyone's just going to go back to building their own Omicron and all that stuff, so. I think this is going to help out hard engaged champions. So I think it's going to help out Fizz. He's actually going to be able to land his fish on people now. Annie can actually flash Tibbers now. Blitz hooks, Thresh. All these like big engaged champions are going to like this change a lot. So I think it's a nerf to squishy champions that were rushing this first. Okay. Weather King. Big nerf. Big nerf. Now, once again, LS thought this isn't going to be a big deal. I disagree. I think this is a massive deal. And the reason, I mean, that's 20% less life stealing. Now, that's not just off of auto attacks, don't forget. It's off of the Blade passive. Right? So the Blade passive is going to give you a lot less life steal as well. And this item is already bad, and it has been bad for a long time, and I'm not going to enumerate the reasons why people are arguing with me about this item constantly. It does not scale. It doesn't scale. Like, the only thing it scales with is Hurricane. Extra on hit, whatever. Like, people would just get this because they wanted extra sustain in lane. They could be more aggressive with their trades. They could take some bad trades. And they wanted to have a little bit more of a power spike once they got their bilge water and were able to do their extra 100 burst damage. That's fine. But this does not hold a candle. Like, as soon as Death's Dance was released and reworked, nail in the coffin for Weather and King. I think people just haven't realized it yet. People are very slow adopters. But I'm telling you right now, Death's Dance is superior to Blazer and King in virtually every way. It gives you the lifesteal, and it gives you even more lifesteal. It gives you 15% of all physical damage, not just auto attacks, all physical damage. You know, BOTRK gives you the extra lifesteal on the HP shredding, but it doesn't apply to anything else. So it doesn't apply to Lucian's Qs. It doesn't apply to Lucian's ult. It doesn't apply to you know, any of these other physical damage abilities. Ash's W. Like, none of this would steal life. This does. Death's Dance does steal that extra life, and it has 80 attack damage. 80. Like, Blade of the Ruined King is garbage because it only has like 35 attack damage or something on it. Let me see. $40 attack damage. That is trash. Like, this is this is why, because people will go like Blade of the Ruined King into something, into like Infinity Edge or whatever, and that's just awful because this has no damage. Like, it doesn't have crit, it doesn't have high attack damage. So that's bad. Like, like the Death's Dance does double the damage. It has better defense on it. So I always talk about this all the time. This extra 30% physical damage when they change this from 15 to 30%, big deal. Because who are the best supports right now? I know people might disagree, but it's the enchanters. Those are the best a lot of times. So we'll talk about that in the tier list video tomorrow. You got your Jannas, your Lulu, your Sona, Nami, Soraka. All of these are the best. And you know what those champions do? They heal and they shield. And you know what they would like? An extra 3 seconds so that their shield comes off cooldown so they can actually heal people through things. So they get the extra heal in there. So this is a huge deal because it delays the damage and allows the enchanters to shield people up. It also allows you to heal yourself up with the extra lifesteal. So I think that people are still sleeping on Death's Dance the vast majority of the time. And I just think that it completely shuts out Blade of the Ruined King for smart players. It does more damage, it heals for more, and it has a much better passive. Has a much better build path too. You don't have to sit there and have these like dinky items in your inventory. Like Blade of the Ruined King, like the items are just so garbage until you actually complete it. Like, this thing is awful early on. Like, who wants to build a recurve bow? You're worthless in lane. Whoever gets a BF sword while you have a recurve bow is just going to stomp you. This is like, it's okay. The extra, you know, 100 magic damage is okay. But, you know, this blade nerf will finally, people might realize, maybe I should be doing Death's Dance. You know, the only champion, like, Callista has to get this. And that's really sad for her, but it's okay. Like, Ezreal, if anyone, any poor soul still plays Ezreal, like, you still have to get this. Probably. Although, I don't know, Death's Dance also does apply to Ezreal Q, so I might actually go for Death's Dance over this because it gives you the cooldown reduction, which Ezreal loves. And it does apply to all physical damage, so it would apply to his Qs. So, yeah, I would potentially go Death's Dance on Ezreal even. Because that would also scale with his ultimate, scale with his E, his Q, his auto. Because he doesn't need attack speed at all. All he wants is more damage. The 80%. I would actually go Death's Dance on Ezreal probably. Before I went play the Ruined King. So I mean, the only champion now is someone who's gonna need both attack speed and the on hit. So maybe definitely Callisto, which is sad. Don't get it on Vayne. Get crit. Definitely don't get it on Xayah. Get Essence Reaver. Or Death's Dance. I mean, maybe Twitch still, because Twitch's ultimate applies on hit on everybody who's hit, and he does want the speed because it's only up for 5 seconds, and he really wants to get as many shots in as he possibly can, and he's going to heal from all of that. Whereas with Death's Dance, he would heal from all of that, but he wouldn't be able to apply the he doesn't have the attack speed on Death's Dance, and he wouldn't get the Blade of the Ruined King passive applied to every single person that gets hit. So like a Hurricane Twitch or something like that might still want Blade of the Ruined King. But that's about it. And I honestly think that maybe Death's Dance even on Twitch, although I doubt it. I think Blade of the Ruined King is probably still better on Twitch, but very, very few cases. So hopefully this squeezes it out of the meta. We'll see. But yeah, I think it's a big deal. I think this is going to nerf Master Yi a little bit, but I still think he'll be really strong. Okay. Ninja Tabi nerf. Okay, this is massive. This is really, really big deal. Ninja Tabi has squeezed so many champions out of the meta, and I want to explain why, because I don't think that a lot of people understand. Oh, God, this is always longer than I want it to be, but we're almost at the end. I think there's just, yeah, we're basically at the end. This will be the last thing that I talk about, but I do want to go in depth about this just for like 5 or 10 minutes here, because I think this is important for people to understand. So if we look at Ninja Tabi, so I have it opened up here. I have a lot of tabs, but I don't have a Ninja Tabi here. Because this is not clear to a lot of people exactly what this means. Even LS did not describe exactly why this is important. You know, or maybe it was, I think it was LS. It could have been Nice. But anyways, like, this isn't for just for auto attack champions. People think, oh, you know, auto attack champions has helped. This is also for many burst champions. Ninja Tabi screws them over. So what is it about Ninja Tabi that makes it so powerful? Okay, so it's 30 armor, which is good, by the way. So it's already 103% efficient, which is nice for a defensive item before you even look at this. Now, all basic attacks are reduced by 12%. Now, it used to be 8% back in the day. Okay, and it was a good boot back then. But they buffed it a long time ago to be 12%. So when was it? 12 to 10. What? That can't be right. Patch 6.11? It says right here it was nerfed from 12 to 10 and 6.11. I guess maybe they powered it up again. I don't know. That seems weird. So something's a little wacky there. Anyways, so, and it explains it here a little bit, but I think it's still pretty vague. Does not reduce the damage of on-hit effects. It does, however, reduce the damage of basic attack modifiers. So basically, if anything says that it does more damage, your next attack does more damage, and it doesn't use the words on hit, then that damage is actually reduced by Ninja Tabi. Think about that. That also applies to crits. So Ninja Tabi reduces damage on crits. So if something would normally hit you for, you know, 100, and instead hits you for 200 off of a crit, then it's going to reduce 24 off of that instead of just 12. So it does apply to crits also. But it applies to on-hit things. So there's so many champions that this applies to. So it's Kha'Zix. I think Kha'Zix is going to be a lot better. I think that people could potentially do Death's Dance on Kha'Zix. Someone was telling me you hit the CDR cap with Cleaver and Warrior, but that's only 30%. Death's Dance would give you that other 40%. But anyways, I don't know. I'll have to think more about Kha'Zix. I can talk about that more in my metagame analysis video. But this is important. So look at this. Unseen Threat. His next basic attack against an enemy champion to deal bonus magic damage. Okay, there is no word here that says on hit. So your next basic attack deals bonus magic damage. Even though it's magic damage, it would still be reduced by Ninja Tabi, because it's a modifier on the basic attack. And this is a lot of Kha'Zix's damage. You know, 40% AD, and you get this in addition to your normal basic attack. So this gets modified by that. And one of the biggest people here is... Can I go back? Yes. Draven. So this is going to help Draven out astronomically, because his Q gets its basic attack modified. So it deals bonus physical damage. Not on hit, just bonus physical damage. By a lot. It's basically double damage. If you don't know, I've talked about Draven a ton of different times, but he hits like an absolute truck because of his Q scaling. And a lot of that gets doubled. Basically, even more than doubled when you start talking about crits. So like Ninja Tabi, you know, it looks like it's, yeah, like a 2% nerf is not a huge deal, but it is, because that's basically like Draven is going to do like 5% more damage or so on his Qs because of that, which is a really big deal. Now people who maybe, you know, had 1,000 health and he like full combos them and they live with like 50, now they're dead. So it's a really big deal. So who else is on there? Like Hecarim has also been squeezed out because of this. Master Yi, his modifiers on hit from his Wuju style. Fiora. Actually, if you look at Fiora and how she's worded, this is going to be a buff to her. Like, let's look. Fizz. Let's look at Fizz. Fizz is another one. This is a good patch for Fizz. I still am not sure if he's top tier anymore, but I think that the nerf of Banshee's Veil, what I'm calling a pretty big nerf for Banshee's Veil, and the Ninja Tabi nerf is huge for Fizz. So if we look at Seastone Trident, so this is on hit, Ren's enemies. Okay, so this is not modified by Ninja Tabi. Extra on hit. However, this is active. Fizz's next basic attack deals bonus magic damage. It is not on hit. It is bonus magic damage. So that means this gets modified. And it's tripled. So that is huge, huge. Extra damage with the nerf to Ninja Tabi. So Fizz was one. Fiora was another one that I just talked about. So if we look at Fiora, where's old Fifi here? There we go. Look at her passive. Basic attacks or damaging abilities against a vital deal 2% as bonus true damage. It is not on hit. It is true damage, but it gets modified by Ninja Tabi. It doesn't matter that it's true damage, because it's a basic attack, so it's going to get reduced. I'm pretty sure, I'm 99% sure that it doesn't matter that it's true damage, because that's not the way that Ninja Tabi's worded. It doesn't interact with armor at all. It doesn't interact with damage types at all. It just interacts with a basic attack. If a basic attack does damage, if it's modified by anything, that still gets reduced. So this helps Fiora do a lot more damage. Even though it's true damage, it was being reduced by Ninja Tabi. So that's why Ninja Tabi are so overpowered. And that's why that doesn't get articulated in a lot of videos. Everyone's like, Ninja's overpowered, Ninja's overpowered. Like, ask any pro, ask anyone that knows anything about League of Legends. Ninja Tabi has been the most overpowered boot for quite a while right now, and that's why. Now, it doesn't work with things like Trinity Force, okay? And stuff like that, because that's on hit. Okay, so the key is you have to look for that word on hit, okay? Basic attacks on hit grant, this extra movement speed. Spell Blade on hit deals this extra damage, so that does not apply. The on hit still goes through. All right, it's just the stuff that says the basic attacks do extra damage, but it does not use the specific words on hit. Okay, so this is a big deal for a lot of champions, especially burst damage assassin type of champions. So on Hecarim's charge, it's modified. Jack's empowered attacks are modified. Kha'Zix is modified. Master Yi, Fiora, Draven's going to be the big one. But anything that gives plus damage to an auto, so that's physical, magic, or true damage. So all of those people are going to be buffed. Okay. So yes, it does affect auto attackers. Like, yes, it is going to hurt. Caitlyn's actually going to be a huge beneficiary as well, which I talked about, because her headshot counts as an empowered auto attack. So, yeah, it's gonna, it'll help out your Lucians out there. It'll help out your Zyas and some of these other people, but it's really, really going to help the people who have attack damage modifiers. Even a lot of the mages, people that you wouldn't suspect that have these attack damage modifiers. So it remains to be seen, but I think Draven's a big one. I think Fizz loves that. Kha'Zix loves that. Fiora loves it. All of these champions really, really like that bonus. So, that's really good for them. And I'll talk about what that means in terms of the meta and stuff like that tomorrow when I do the meta analysis video, but it's a big deal. Okay, coin, minor buff, doesn't matter, still the worst item. Only get it on Janna, basically, because she doesn't have a good way to proc Spell Thieves. The right choice pretty much whenever the enemy team has any physical damage. So they're not even talking about it. That's just a little known fact that it also reduced magic damage and I think still true damage. Okay, minor buff, doesn't matter, still garbage for the most part. This was one thing that I really was wrong about. I am wrong about some stuff. That was something I was wrong about in my 7.9 preview patch. I thought coin was going to be a lot better than it was. I was really underestimating the Eye of the Watchers and how big of a deal the movement speed is on that. But yeah, just get this on Janna and pretty much nobody else, I think. Now, this is actually really nice. I'll talk about this more in my meta analysis video, but this is really, really good for the game of League of Legends to have more bans. So there's several reasons that this is going to be good, and that's what I'm going to end the video on here. It's going to allow skillful players to gain elo faster. So it's going to take a lot of variance, more variance out of the game. So it's really hard, first of all, for Riot to balance the game around, they have, coming close to 150 different champions, and they change stuff all the time. And it's just impossible to predict like what kind of repercussions that's going to have to some extent when there's millions of people playing it that are going to be able to find, things that maybe you had never even thought about. So support Malzahar, for example. I'm sure that was on nobody's radar at R&D because no one had ever seen that before. Misfortune countering Zyra at Worlds. That wasn't really overpowered, but that was an interesting interaction that people hadn't thought about. So this is going to, in case they have an oops moment and they just can't balance everything the way they want to balance, then this allows players to, there's going to be a less probability that teams are going to get the really overpowered champions because it's just, stuff's just going to be banned a lot more. So it adds consistency to solo queue for that reason, because it's less likely that one team is going to be completely stacked with all the overpowered stuff while the other team has garbage stuff. Now, it's still going to happen, but it's going to be more likely that at least some of that stuff is going to get banned out. Okay, so fewer games are going to be determined in champion select because of that. All right, it forces people who one-trick, particularly overpowered champions, to diversify, which makes them better players. It's a true testament of skill. I mean, if you can just find something that you just exploit to the max that never gets banned, so if you're like a one-trick Fiora player, or you're a one-trick Kassadin player, or a one-trick, whatever, this is going to force you to diversify, and that's going to be good for the game overall. So I think that's a good thing. The one-tricks who play champions that are common bans are not going to like this too much, but I think it's okay. I think this is really big too. There's a couple of big things that I haven't heard talked about that much of people who talk about the 10-ban system. It's more agency for players, which will cut down on toxicity to some extent. There are still going to be a lot of toxic people out there, and there's just no way around that a lot of times. But if people have a chance to ban, then they can't complain to other people about not banning something. At least not as easily. So for example, if Kassadin slips through the ban phase, right now, for example, someone can say, well, why didn't you guys ban Kassadin? Well, I didn't have a ban, so I couldn't ban Kassadin, or whatever. Well, now you have a chance. You could have banned Kassadin. So there's no more excuses that your team, is just an idiot and doesn't ban the right champion. You got a bunch of idiots on your team. They don't ban the right champions. You always have a chance to ban champions. So it's harder to pass that. You can still complain. You're like, well, I had to ban X champion. I couldn't ban this champion also. Everyone has a chance to participate, and when everyone has more agency in the process, there's going to be a lot less grounds for being disgruntled. So because they have a chance to ban something, they have more agency, they're less likely to be toxic. Now, once again, the degree to which they're less toxic is debatable, but I think overall it's just going to make people feel better because they feel like they're more in control. And you are more in control. Like, that's not just a feeling. You actually are. If there is a champion that you legit think is super overpowered that needs to be banned every game, you can ban it. Now, if I think Kassadin needs to be banned every game, if I'm the first or second pick, I don't have to watch the team not ban Kassadin and him get through and go to the enemy team. I can control that every single game. I could ban it every single game if I want to, no matter what. So, if you really do think you have a good read on the meta and there's just a certain champion that needs to go out and a lot of people just aren't banning it, you can be the one to do it. So you do actually have a lot of more control. So it helps the way that people feel emotionally, and it helps you actually literally have more control over the game because you have a ban. Always. All right, and this one is really important as well. And this next point about solo laners who are early picks not getting dumpstered as easily. because it does kind of suck, and I figured this out. If you're a solo laner and you have to pick before the other person, they get to counterpick you, that's a terrible feeling. So I'm not a great top laner, but I have just been playing top some, and when I get counterpicked with something really hard, it's a very feels bad, kind of moment. But now, even if you do have to pick first, you at least can ban out a really strong counterpick against you, right? So, for example, if you're a top laner and you want to play, I don't know all the matchups super well, but let's say that you want to play Riven or something like that, and you want to play Riven, and your first pick, you can now ban Jace or something that's going to be really good against you. So now they can't counterpick you. Or if you want to pick, I don't know, if you want to play Fiora top lane and you don't want to go against Pantheon, you can ban Pantheon. So you have a chance to ban out something that's going to be a really strong counterpick. And this can be abusable if you play a champion that's really strong against most things, but has a very common counterpick or something to it. Then, like maybe if you want to play Darius top and Teemo's really good against him, I don't know. I'm just making it up. I think he is, but you can just ban Teemo. So I think that's really going to help out the solo laners who have to pick first, so they don't get counterpicked quite as easily. Or if you want to play Syndra and you want to make sure Fizz is out of there. So I wish they still did the alternating bans and each ban was like 10 seconds, but whatever. This is fine. It's giving people all of these extra things. It's great. It's a great new addition. I love it. I think it's very good for the game. I'll talk about this more in my meta-analysis video. I think these are probably the top 10 champions that need to be banned. Not 100% about the order, but I feel like, and a lot of this just depends, but I think Draven, Twitch definitely need to be out of there. Kassadin 100% out of there. I think these three are pretty ironclad. Like, these have to go, especially Draven and Kassadin. Those have to go, like 110%. They cannot be in the game. I'm solo queue. I think that Ivern is possibly someone who should go, depending. I think that Lulu is probably still a pretty good ban. I think that Master Yi is still a good ban. I didn't put him on here, but he's a good one. I think Riven's a good one. Zac is another one that probably absolutely has to go. Probably if I had to pick three, maybe like Draven, Kassadin, Zac. I think Rek'Sai is probably going to be worthy of a ban. Blitz, especially in lower elos, or silver and bronze, I should say, probably worthy of a ban. And LeBlanc, potentially worthy of a ban. So I'll talk more about the bans and the meta tomorrow in the meta analysis video, but I think that this is that's a pretty good starting place to start thinking about bans. Okay, well, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. I know this video is a bit longer than I intended. I really didn't want it to be 2 hours, but there's just so much in this patch. Like, this is a crazy patch, so I'll do the meta-analysis and the tier list tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'll get that done before the stream, but I'll do it as fast as I can. This takes a while for me to do. I think I mentioned this earlier, but, I've got a newborn in the house, and I do a ton of research. I spent 3 hours researching this a day. Had to type it up, have to film it, have to upload it. So I know people would want it like instantly as soon as the patch comes out, but I just don't want to do one of those dinky, yeah, this looks okay. This looks all right. Like, I really want to delve in and give you that hardcore knowledge as much as I can. And that just takes time to do that. There's no shortcut to that. So anyways, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll show you around the channel if you're new to the channel as well, or you're not aware of some of the other things we have going on at the end here. So I do stream just about every day. You can see it here. The times are off a little bit right now. Usually I start around like 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but this week until Sunday, my in-laws are in town and they're staying in this room, so I've been streaming in the early afternoon. So that'll probably continue for the next few days, but then we'll go back to around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, most likely. I have all the tier lists here. I also have other topical guides, so how to support an overview, pick, ban, dodge, how to think about that, how to think about itemization. There's lots of good guides in there if you want to check those out. I have coaching sessions that I offer. If you're interested in that, it's just $20, in-depth coaching session. You can click on it, see what it's all about, see if it'd be something that's interesting for you. I think you can learn a lot by watching the videos, even if you don't have the 20 to donate. I think it can be very helpful. I make a Google Doc for each session, and it covers kind of an op.gg review of things, pre-game analysis. I go through the game itself, play-by-play talk, you know, everything you'd expect from a replay analysis, write down some notes, and then at the very end, just kind of go over those notes and try to give you like a top 5 way to improve as best you can. So the videos are usually about an hour long. I think it's very, very worth your money. If you're interested in becoming a much better player, you like my style, you know, you like my teaching, then I think it's a really good option. You want to support the channel, it's a great option for you. And just, if you don't know a lot about me, my background, I do teach college students, mostly persuasive writing and 19th century British literature, so I do have a background in education. And I think that's something unique that I bring to the stream and to these coaching sessions and such as well. So I'm not a challenger level player, but I do think very deeply about the game. I think I have some good ideas about the game. I think most of what holds me back, the highest I've been is Diamond 5 last season and Platinum 1 this season. Trying to climb back up as much as I can. But I think it's just in maybe in-game decisions or mechanics that hold me back much more so than game knowledge. You know, I can always learn a little bit more from the game as well, but I think that, in other words, I think that my knowledge is pretty solid. I think my teaching's pretty solid for the most part, so I think I can be of a large help to you. That's what I'm saying with the coaching series. But check them out, see what you think. I think you can learn a lot even if you don't donate and get a personal coaching session. I have individual guides. You want to check those out. So all sorts of champion guides. I've got a bunch more coming soon. The Zyra, Janna, and Lulu are all very popular, especially that Zyra one. People really love Zyra. So check those out. And then I have support playlists. So if you want to see just a ton of Janna, a ton of Nautilus, a ton of Tom Kench, I've just got playlists. You just click on them. Starts with the newest game, works its way to the oldest. I put the runes in the description. So you can really learn how to play a champion by just binge watching whoever your favorite champion is that you want to see me play. So anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.